In 2018, IBPK organized public deliberation forums in Murang'a, Turkana and Homa Bay counties. These forums were anchored on the appreciation that decision-making on budget priorities are based on trade-offs that ought to be deliberated upon. The aim of these forums was to demonstrate the importance of structuring public participation forums to promote meaningful participation. Having a competent facilitator is essential in public deliberations around the budget process.
The role that is played by the facilitators in ensuring people understand what decision they are going to make that day, the sectors that they are going to engage in, or the priorities that they are going to be discussing about. I think that role is always downplayed in many instances. What you notice in many places is that anyone who works in government can go do public participation. That's the general approach, it seems.
What we mean by facilitator's intervention, a bit of explanation by the person leading the process. Does it make a difference into how people contribute?
We are noticing that the facilitator, having a facilitator who understands the sector, who understands the decision being made, who can be able to push back when misinformation is being pushed into the discussion, really helps keep people within a certain tangent of discussion and makes it easier for people to make a decision and guide the discussion as well.
One of the key roles of a facilitator during the forums was to ensure that the decision that the participants were to make on that day was well understood by all.
How many sectors do you think we have in government? Yes. 18? That's a very smart answer. I know where the 18 has come from. Someone else? How many sectors do you think we have? Hii meza munaniangusha. Simu guess.
I think there are more than 20.
There are more than 20. Someone else?
24.
22. Naona generally niko around 20. The national government and its ministries and sectors have been there for a long time, right? At the national level, we have 10 sectors. Okay? Now, the 10 sectors include sectors like health, education, public administration, and others. Under each of the sectors, you have ministries. So, for example, under the sector education, you have a number of ministries there. You have a state department for basic education, you have a state department for university education, and the rest. So, even in the budget, that is how the budget is arranged, is that you have 10 sectors. We have to decide how much money we give to each of those 10 sectors. Then when we've given each of those sectors their money, then now those sectors have to decide how much money they are going to give to each of their ministries. Tuko sawa sawa mpaka hapo. Now, one of the most important decisions that is made at the national level is a decision about how much money we are going to give to each sector. Okay? It's a decision about how much money should go to agriculture versus how much money should go to education. How much money should go to security versus how much money should go to governance, justice, law, and order. Okay, so that decision is made around February. Around February, there's a discussion that happens at the National Assembly level, and there is a document that is tabled at that time that is very critical for us, and I would like us to keep this in mind. There's a document called a budget policy statement. A budget policy statement, even from just that middle word, the policy part, is where we are actually deciding as a country what are the policies that we want to fund in the next financial year, and of those things, how much will it cost to actually do them. It is at this point around February that we decide what are the big priorities that we are going to do as a country. Okay? So by the time unaona Rotich anakuja na budget yake in briefcase huwa inatokea mwezi gani? June. By the time you see Rotich with his briefcase in June, some decisions were already made this early. Okay, we are already in February. Sai tumeingia March. We are just all February getting into March, and there are some budget decisions that are already being made right now. So the budget policy statement is the point where we make a decision of, do we want to give more money to agriculture than education? Do we want to give more money to infrastructure than security? That is the right time when this decision is made. So if for me as a farmer, I want more money to go into employing certain people within the agriculture sector like extension officers, if the national government is still able to do that, or if I want more money to go into the fertilizer subsidy program, then the time to start engaging is actually now. By the time Rotich anakuja, that decision has already been made. We're just discussing of the money that we are given for agriculture, how are we going to share it among all the priorities within agriculture?
What do we mean by priorities?
Most important.
Most important. In other words, everything is important, but there are certain things that need to be given much more attention. Priorities have to do with what is the priority for the coming year, and what should be given much more focus in the coming year. What do you think are the critical priorities?
Health,
Health, why?
security, and education.
The second role of the facilitator is to help participants learn about the sectors that they would be making decisions about during the forums. Participants were guided through information that was provided. This information package included factors to consider when deciding how much should be allocated to different government sectors, information on different aspects of each sector, as well as expert opinion on different approaches to development.
I want to add something little to the discussion. Now I want you to go to page 21. Are we all in page 21? In page 1 there is a table 1 up there. Okay? Table 1 inasema absorption of departments within the energy, infrastructure and ICT sector. Tuko pamoja? Haya. Tukisema absorption tunamaanisha nini? Kutumika kwa pesa. Nilikupea shilingi 100, umetumia ngapi? Haya. 2014-2015 absorption ya hii sekta yote ilikuwa ngapi? Yote huko chini, hiyo ni ya department moja peke yake. 78%. Haya, 2015-2016 ilikuwa ngapi? Haya, hapo ikateremuka kidogo. 2016-2017 ilikuwa ngapi? 78%. So on average, over the last 3 years, hiyo sekta imechukua pesa ngapi? Imetumia 75%. So a quarter of the money that we allocated to that sector over the last 3 years was not spent. Now let's go to page 25. So this is about performance, okay? Now on page 25, we have table 2. Hapo chini. Hii ni ya education. Haya, 2013-2014 walitumia ngapi? Haya, 2014-2015 walitumia ngapi? 95%. 2015-2016? Na ile mwaka ya mwisho? So on average, 95%. Now, for all those who really want more money to go to infrastructure, does this change your mind a little?
This guidance extends to tactics that would help participants learn the most in the limited time available, such as what discussion questions they ask around the subject matter. In some cases, especially when there are many participants, this role may need several facilitators as well.
If you look at the program, session ilikuwa inaanza from 11, yeah? You can see that's the session where we are now. Program, yeah? And these are some easy questions, mtumie tu kama guiding questions, yeah? So throughout the discussion, you can say what surprised you about the sector, mnaongea, discuss. What's the most important thing about this sector, these two sectors, mna discuss, least important. So just these are just guiding questions. You shouldn't use them exactly, but just to guide you to have the discussion, yeah? And that's it. So yeah, and then you keep on referring to this in case unataka kuona how much money is going to each of the departments and agencies and all that, yeah? And I'll be here in case you have any questions. Yeah. So feel free. We have only 30 minutes. After that, we will come back. Yeah? All right.
Number one, you don't need to read word for word of everything. So for example, if you're looking at the first one, so you can see the share of MDA, so that's the ministries you have here. So the share of the budget that goes to each of them, for example, right? So by just looking at this, you can tell already what 25, 45, 19. So there's a 45 here, which is for roads. So even without reading the whole table, you can tell the biggest amount of money for infrastructure inaenda kwa barabara. The least amount
0.07.
kwa maritime affairs. So you're not reading word for word. I would be happier if you guys kind of shared responsibilities. So for example, for you can look at that and kind of come back to the group and say, by the way, did you guys know I saw this and that? Then the next person sees something, then you're all able to cover as much ground as possible. When we go to the group discussion, we'll still have an opportunity to still look at them. But I would want the discussion among you to be more about what you are seeing and what you think is important and what you think is amiss as you go through. And also, it's not just what is here, but also sharing from your own experiences. So you live in Homa Bay, you see roads every day. How are they? Kind of just bring also your own experience into this discussion. Because this is just technical from a document, but your experience could be very different.
The decision today has to be from you and by you alone. So for me, I'll just be guiding the discussion. Number two, we are going to make this decision as one group. I know we had our own little discussions, and in that discussion, like the group that was here was very animated and very hot. But the decision we are going to make, the 20 of us. So I want you to think of this as a simulation of what could happen in a county. I want you to be very open, that based on your own understanding about what those two sectors do, and based on your own understanding about how they perform, how much money they've received before, about how those sectors are structured and how they work, what proportion of 100% would you give to each of them? The only thing I'll ask is make sure you support your answer in a way that you convince the next person. The first step to making an agreement is convincing the person next to you. Okay, so let's start.
So me, I would go for 60 for infrastructure and 40 for education. Because, for instance, how many people do we have who are educated in this country? How many? So many people. And they are jobless. Take it for example, like how many institutions of education are we constructing nowadays? How many universities do we have that are being given chapter almost every year? We have Kenyatta University, ilipata chapter last year. Murang'a University, ilipata chapter last year. Those are two institutions in the same year. But can you focus on that group that is coming out of that place, that is educated? It still comes back to society. We still have the China to come to us. We still have the Indians to come to us. Why? My question is why? They are investing too much on something that is not bringing profit. That is simply education.
Well, I want Daniel first to respond. And then I'll go back to you. Yes.
You see, when you say we are educated and we are having graduates who are not employed, it pinches me. When I'm seeing Chinese doing some work that they're supposed to be doing. So first of all, you have to address that. Why are we inviting experts to our country to do the work that we can be able to do? That the answer is we don't have those expertise. We have random people. We need more money in education and be focused as a country towards what we demand and what we require, so that we can utilize our young people and our expatriates in all the areas of our operations. We don't have those people.
I want to hear what the people who are in group 3 and group 4 think, and whether they are getting convinced by the reasons being given by people on this side.
For me, I would say for maybe Chinese, the system with the Chinese and Kenya is very different. Really, for the toys that we see the Chinese are making, they are making watches, those toys that can move with engines. They are not educated, they are given skills. All we need is skills and change our system of education.
Do you think those skills require money? So that's the trade-off. So that's the discussion, right? I think all of us agree on one thing. All of us agree that there is an expertise challenge that we have, right? That we have to sort out. I think the point we need to get to is whether the creation of that expertise requires extra resources, or as you are saying in your last point, it just requires us to reorganize our education system, right? So that, I guess, is the point we are going for. On the infrastructure, on the education side, is a question of we actually do not have the capacity to produce that expertise.
I'm giving this person the knowledge, but not skills. How can you expect that person to be an expert without skill?
That's why we have our technical colleges, right? So we are still speaking about the same thing in the same sector. So the thing that I'm reaching for is whether you believe, and this is the question for, I'm asking two separate questions, which I need answers for. The first one is whether the skills that we need to build are more about more resources or just a rethink of the education system itself, right? That's the first question, which answers to your point, right? So it could be that we can actually impact those skills, but it's not the need for more money. We just need to throw out the curriculum and get a curriculum that actually goes for what is necessary now. The other option, yes, we have some schools. Yes, we have some teachers. But the kind of skills that we are looking for, that will mean I don't need to bring a Chinese to weld. Mnaona tulileta wangapi? 3,000 of them. That capacity does not lie within the country, and we have to invest in something that then will help us build that skill. I think that's only the point where the difference is in this whole discussion.
That we have a facilitator who anchors the discussion on the decision that is at hand. We also see a facilitator as someone who, like I said, ensures that the discussions that are happening are truthful. And what do I mean by this? When people are having discussions and they're giving reasoning behind their proposals, it's possible that there's misrepresentation. So who checks that? The facilitator. So that people do not make decisions on false premises.
The fourth role of a facilitator is to provide clarification where needed, as well as dispelling misinformation by participants. We observed that the facilitator needs to be keen to correct statements that provided false or inaccurate statements.
If it is Turkana we are talking about, there is education gap. The literacy is at over 80%. That, and then the infrastructure of education, they are still low, because we are talking about a community that has been marginalized for over 50 years. The other thing that is very contentious, the reason why answering that question is very difficult, we just discovered oil. Economy here is very poor. Employment rate is also very low. So while exploring energy might cause employment to the community around. So in my view, because they are all important, employment is as important as education, I will give it a 50-50. A 50-50, so that we exploit the oil resource that we have, and we also put some money on education. And then those education go specific to those engineering courses of people that will take care of the industries, in the oil industries.
Basically, I was looking at investing. I'm investing in infrastructure, and I'm investing in education. After 4 years, we produced 1 million from 4 rivers. 70,000 got to university. Out of the 70,000, 10% are focus and material. The remaining 930,000 are Kulima. They are not adding as much as infrastructure would.
I've looked at these sectors, and one of the things I've discovered, answering your question in terms of making decision, is that this country has refused to invest in data. And once we cannot invest in data, then I, George Collins Wall, cannot authoritatively say that let me put education or infrastructure or. First thing is, can we invest on that?
People interacted with the information about these sectors, then people got a bit more comfortable to say, you know, I see this sector has more ministries, so probably I'll give it more money. People will say, we think it's more important in a country to develop people rather than just develop infrastructure. And so the more information they had access to, the easier it became for them to give good reasons.
But at the same time, the easier it became for them to start borrowing from their own experiences. In some cases, with a bit of cheeky misinformation, which is one of the things the facilitators had to push back. But you notice that as time went, people became a bit more comfortable being asked to give reasons as to why they are saying certain things, and the discussion became a bit more live because then you had other people in the room pushing back when people gave certain reasons, which is what you would expect to see. To make one final decision as a group of 20. Sawa sawa? Then when we finish that, we make the final decision and then we finish for the day. Tuko sawa sawa mpaka hapo? Grupu gani wanataka kwenda wa kwanza?
Social protection, culture and recreation 35%, and governance, justice, law and order 65%. We were, in our assessment of the discussion, we realized that with the strength and good governance, prevailing justice within law and order, certain aspect of social protection and culture and recreation become self-initiate for positive human development. Reason number 2, you realize, like for example, if you look at certain departments within
social protection.
No, certain departments of social protection are duplication of what is happening in GJLO. Locations are low on certain departments of governance, GJLO, and there's more reason for those commissions to adequate, because they could be underperformed because of inadequate funding. So for them to realize their mandates, and because, for example, if it is a commission that is supposed to come to the ground, talk to the people, and there is no funding enough to do that, they'll sit and wait if there is any money to be put to them. So those things lie just like that. So more funding needs to be given to them.
The third role of the facilitator is to ensure that there is meaningful deliberation by the participants. A key part of this role is played by requiring all contributors provide adequate reasons behind their proposals. It is also to ensure that dissenting opinions and counter-reasoning is provided freely. The facilitator also ensures that minority groups are given an opportunity to give their proposals as well as justifications for those proposals.
What reasons do you think were very adequate? Reasons that you had and you are like, wow, that's a good reason. If I was a government official, I would actually weigh in that and say that's a good reason to give the allocation. If I only had 100 shillings and these are the only 2 sectors, I would say, yes, let's give money according to the ratio being proposed. And these are reasons that you may have ranked between 3, but mostly 4 and 5. Let's hear from people who haven't said a thing.
The issues with absorption rate and performance of GJ law. So I took this as an adequate issue because GJ law has got a lot of issues to do with justice and trust. So if they performed with the 92% the way we rated it, and the other one at 89%, so I saw that this one is a good reason to give it a priority.
I have 2, in fact one from group 4. The third was GJ law is currently underfunded. Well, the common thing is that there is no sufficient money to cater for all sectors. All sectors within the government are underfunded. I also have a concern with group table 1 on their second and third points. If they're to give 60% allocation to those, then my argument was that 40%, the vice versa of what they give to energy, is enough to cater for those that they're writing there. There is no point of giving a lot of money in talent development, even if it directly involves Wanjiko. So I think they have exaggerated the amount they are giving to that sector.
The role played by the facilitator is to ensure that the intended decision or outcome of the meeting is reached. A facilitator ensures that participants agree on how to make decisions and then go on to make the decision after the deliberative forum.
I want all of us as a group now to make the decision on how much money do we think we will give to those sectors based on what we've learned now, and also based on our experience in terms of what those two sectors do. Now, the question is, how do we make this decision? Do you want to make it by consensus? Do you think we will agree? Or do you want to make it by voting? Do you want to do secret ballot? How do you think we should make this decision?
The best thing is voting. To vote. To vote. To decide on the proportion, which proportion we want to. That's how we break the tie.
We need to give an average on all of them and then come to a consensus.
What are our options? I don't know the percentages that we have.
So the options that we have, okay, so for energy 40-60. Energy 40, education 60. So who supports energy 40 and education should get 60? More for education?
Yeah, 40, education 60.
Okay, that's one.
Please, the rest.
I am going to vote. Somebody has said down for me.
How many are for 60 for energy and 40 for education? Seven? How many are for 30 for energy, 70 for education? Just one.
Yes.
I'm surprised we did not manage to convince the other person.
And Romania has been fought.
50 for energy, 50 for education, half. 2.
Managed to convince one person.
55, 45. Your proposal, eh? So here we have 9. We have 7.
So we start with the first one. How many would like us to allocate 40 to energy and 60 to education? By show of hands.
There is need to have competent facilitators as a key component in public participation. A facilitator helps guide the discussion in a way that people are able to learn, deliberate and make decisions. Part of this guidance is to also ensure that dominant forces do not control the discussion to the disadvantage of other participants, and marginalized groups get a chance to be part of the decisions of the day.